What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another SpiderDerp Yap session. Alright, so today's topic is going to be how to fix Yu-Gi-Oh's new player issue. I don't really know how this video is gonna be like structured. I'll just say like whatever comes to mind, I guess. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment down below what you think regarding this issue. So the first point I would like to bring up is that Konami should support other formats. If you look at like other card games such as like Hearthstone, you see that they have multiple modes such as like standard, which is like the normal one. They have wild, which is what they use for like all cards, and then battlegrounds and duels. And these like formats are used to pretty much allow more people to play the game, because some people might prefer battlegrounds over like the standard format. So they have a choice. And if you look at like Legends of Runeterra, they have two formats, I'm pretty sure, which is like all the cards and then the format specific um format, I guess. So yeah, if you look at like Master Duel, for instance, they have the events, but they run for like what, a couple of days at most. If you had like something like the GOAT event, if you had that permanently, so many more people would just play the game, because I know like a lot of people who just like booted up Master Duel just because of the GOAT format, because it's like what they're more used to. But then like once that event's done, they like really can't play it anymore. So if you just add that second format to Master Duel, who knows how many more people would be playing the game. And also, you can just support the format in the TCG too. I know that they like reprinted the older packs, and they're like Edison related packs, but I feel like that's kind of just like they're not like and I feel like that's just not addressing the problem like immediately. Like, like you can just reprint the old packs, but if you're not officially going to support older formats, then what's the point? You're basically just making them buy packs to play like with their friends and stuff. But at that point, the people who are currently invested in the card game are probably like invested in the modern format. So only those in the modern format will know of these old packs, so then they can play the older format. But if you officially support something like Edison, then more people will be inclined to just rejoin the card game, because stuff like Edison and GOAT, more people are used to that format. I mean, at least like older people. But I guess that's how you can support other formats in a sense. I know in Duel Links they had Rush Duel added to it, but at that point, like I didn't. That's like a newer format, so like I didn't really like look into Rush Duel at that point. I moved on to Master Duel, so yeah, I guess that's one thing that they did well. But yeah, and also they did release a Speed Duel like cards, but I don't really see them pushing it that much. Like if you look at ads and stuff, they don't really push it that much. And I know that even in like Europe or something, they're just phasing out speed duels kind of entirely. With like there's like less sets coming out. I really like speed duel because a majority of my Yu-Gi-Oh experience is with duel links. So that's like the format I'm most familiar with. I really like speed duels, but I think that they should like support just more formats in general to bring other people back in. And this is just for people that already quit the game. This won't really tackle newer players. I guess Speed Duel, in a sense, is more simple for newer players, but yeah. And the second one is to just support collectors, because not everyone wants to play a card game competitively. They just probably just want to collect the cards. Like if you just look at Pokemon, like think of how many people that have Pokemon cards know how to actually play the game. Like probably like 10% of people who have Pokemon cards know how to actually play the game. The same thing applied for like my friend group. I was the only one who knew how to play the Pokemon card game, but I also had like the worst collection out of all my friends. So yeah. And I think there's a lot of ways they can do it to support collectors more. First off, you can just make cards like I don't know, like I don't know how to like put into words, but just make them look like people want to collect them. So for example, if you look at Pokemon, you have normal cards and you also have the full art cards. If you're gonna pick between the two, people are more likely to like collect the full art cards because they just look nicer in general. So I think Yu-Gi-Oh should do something similar. I'm pretty sure in Rush Duel they do have full art cards, but who the hell plays Rush Duel, right? So I think they should just introduce full art cards to the main format, because there's a lot of like really good looking card art, but the card format doesn't really allow the card art to stand out more. But if they make cards that like showcase the card art more people will be like, oh dang, that's pretty cool. And even if you look at kids, like a lot of kids probably don't know how to play these card games at all. But if they're in the store and they see like a cool looking card or something, they're probably going to ask their parents to buy it, right? And that's going to introduce a ton of more people into the game just by having the cards with them. They don't even need to know how to play the game, but if they have the cards with them, eventually they'll be like, this is actually a game. Why don't I just play it, you know? And they can do this by like having like special editions and like rare cards too, because it's just like, I know like if you're an adult collector, you probably value like rarity and design over playability, so you're probably gonna collect that. But then they also have like the cheaper, like better looking cards. It doesn't have to be necessarily tied to value, but if they just look nicer, more people will be inclined to buy these cards. And they did try it, like if you like look at the Egyptian god cards, like they had the 3 non-playable version just to collect like as a collector item, but they could have just made them look better too. But yeah, so full art cards, I think that's the key to support collectors. All right, so the next point I want to bring up is probably the point I personally believe in will fix it the most, is just make a good anime. Like a good anime will go a long way towards promoting a game. Like in my opinion, Brains is my favorite series, but I only watched that in sub, so I don't really know how it did like English wise. I don't know how the viewership numbers look, but in my opinion, Brains was like the best series in my opinion. If you make a, like, just think of like a really good anime. For example, let's take Hunter x Hunter. All right, if you make a Hunter x Hunter level Yu-Gi-Oh anime, think of just how many non-Yu-Gi-Oh watchers are gonna be like, they'll be more inclined to watch it just because it's a good anime, right? And that's gonna bring more people in to the show, because in my opinion, I think the anime is a really good way to teach people how to play the games as well. Like a lot of the mechanics, like I only knew how these mechanics work because I watched the show, right? But like, for example, I think the series right now is like Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush or something like that. First of all, I don't think that series is actually that good. According to, if you look at the ratings, it's not rated that well. It's like around 6 stars or something. I think you need to actually make good shows nowadays, because like back then, you know, people had cable and they had the shows on. If you have shows on cable, like the worst thing you could do is switch channels. But there's probably not other good shows running in those channels for kids, especially. So if you're watching a show like on cable as a kid, you're probably stuck watching that show. So you can get away with like lower quality shows. But now it's like streaming era, you know, like you can just straight up just search up another show if you don't like it whatsoever. All right. So I think in that case, you do need to make a better show in general. And it brings a lot more like respect to the franchise as well, because if you're catering more towards kids and you're just not making, you at that point you're just a kids franchise, right? But if you're making a good show and you're catering to kids, like you're like making it for everyone. If you look at like Pokemon XYZ, for example, Pokemon XYZ was like a like on a show by itself, it's like really good. And at that point, like people were like, dang, this is like a really good show, I'm gonna go watch it. People get into Pokemon. There's a lot of people already in Pokemon, but the more people like get back into Pokemon at that sense. And but then if you look at like, I heard like there was a lot of backlash over like Alola because like look more kid like. So like if you just make something just it's like technically for kids, but it doesn't look like it's for kids. For example, if you look like 5D's art style versus like Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's art style, they're both like for the same age range basically, but you can see that one is more like adult like in a sense and one is more kid like, and at that point you're not restricting the adults from watching it. Like I watched like 40 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. I don't remember a single character from that, and it's also like it's kind of just like painful to watch in a sense because it's so kid oriented, that like I'm so much used to like Brains. Like if you look at Brains, for example, I feel like they did kind of too much for Brains because that's like a lot of like darker themes, but I think that's fine in a sense. But I really think like you should make the animes more inclusive and just better quality. I heard that they're making like the specials with like the card lore. First of all right, the card lore, I really think they should like focus on that instead of like regular Yu-Gi-Oh anime. Because if you think about it, if you look at Pokemon, the reason Pokemon cards are selling is because people really like the Pokemon, right? They don't look at like Ash Ketchum, they're like, oh, it's an Ash Ketchum card, I'm gonna buy that. No, it's like a Pikachu card, you know, like a Sprigatito card. Like like they like those Pokemon, right? But what if we just do the same with the Yu-Gi-Oh cards itself? Like there's a lot of interesting Yu-Gi-Oh lore that can be transferred up to anime, but I don't mean like a 1 episode special. Like I know it's like I think it's like a 6 episode special that they're doing for the Yu-Gi-Oh card. I'm just saying like a whole series of that, you know, just make a whole series of card lore. Like think about it. Like you have World Chalice, you have Albaz, you know, you have all these like interesting stories that are told through card art itself. But if you make it through an anime series and that it's highly rated anime as well, like you're gonna get people like, oh snap, this is some pretty interesting cards, and I'm gonna buy these cards, you know. And I also think by making a good anime, good and popular anime, Konami is able to like branch itself out from Yugi and Kaiba. Like even to this day, new products, it's only like Yugi and Kaiba. They're like pandering to nostalgia, like you know. But if you just make an iconic character for newer anime, you can use that character instead, you know. So I know it's like easier said than done, but like just like it's not that hard to make a good anime, you know. Just hire good writers, you know. Like it's really not that hard to make a good anime if you just hire good writers, you know. And yeah, I mean, you also need good animators, but at this point, you're making a ton of money. Why don't you just reinvest that money to make potentially more money? You know, like I don't know. And next, I think they should make more quality single player games. Right now, the single player game, I'm pretty sure the most recent single player game is like there's probably like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens game out, but I don't really care about Rush Duel. But I think the last game that I was probably interested in buying was Link Evolution, but I feel like those type of games, they're like copy paste basically. It's like a visual novel type game, the same like format of like gameplay in a sense. But I'm thinking, okay, so for example, if you take Tag Force for example, you have sure the combat system is the cards, but outside of that, you have the whole social aspect of the game. So I think they should make a game with card combat for sure, but I think they should just the problem with the newer games is they're too tunnel vision on that card aspect of the game. I think they should make a bigger game that just uses the card aspect as combat. You know, a good captivating story. Maybe you don't even need to use existing characters to make that story. You know, like if you don't want to make a good anime, just make a good game with newer characters, and then people will be like, oh snap, these are new characters, and then you can use those characters for marketing. You know, like man, they should hire me in Konami instead, you know. Um, so yeah, and they should like I know like in Duelist of the Roses, they don't exactly use the rules. They use like their own special rules. Maybe you can also do that. Just make a game with its own special rules, and yeah. And I think yeah, you can keep Master Duel and Duel Links. You know, those are your multiplayer options. But I also think you should make a quality single player game because you can't play Master Duel like offline. Like I mean, there's probably a mod that allows you to play offline, but like in general, you can't just be playing that offline, especially like on a Switch or something. You know, you could make a good single player Yu-Gi-Oh game and you're good. Next, I think they should make products more affordable. And so if you look at like booster boxes, they're like 80 to like 70 to $80. But then over time, like, you know, like I think Yu-Gi-Oh products especially, they depreciate really quickly because like once that new set comes out, that's like the next set. It's like, oh, it's the strongest deck right now, you know. So that previous set like depreciates in value. If you know you're gonna depreciate in value eventually, I think you might as well just reduce the price starter price overall. So then it's not as big as the depreciation, right? And if you reduce the price, you're gonna get more sales in general. So I think they should just fix the pricing structure. They should also fix the rarity structure. Because like I'm pretty sure the OCG and the TCG don't follow the same like rarities, like for how many packs like you can get these rare cards, you know. And those rare cards are normally the best ones, so they're higher in price also. So I think if you just reduce that cost, you're good. And I think they should revamp structure decks. So if you look at the One Piece TCG, they have like structure decks themselves are competitively viable, you know. And even if they're not, they have a lot of cards exclusive to those structure decks that are competitively viable, so people will buy them in general. And they also have like a premium structure deck, which is more expensive, but it's also better in a sense. So if you look at Yu-Gi-Oh structure decks right now, you need to buy 3 copies of a structure deck in order to have like a proper deck in a sense. But I think they should just make better structure decks by having the cards like instead of needing to buy 3 structure decks. Just put those cards in a structure deck and maybe just price them a bit higher, you know, because a lot of people don't know that you need 3 structure decks when they buy a structure deck to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, right? But if you just make those decks better quality overall, they can possibly just take them to tournaments. You know, they don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to make a new deck. And also, if you look at the One Piece TCG, they have structure deck only tournaments, which is pretty interesting. So I think Yu-Gi-Oh should also try doing a structure deck only tournament. So yeah, and also I heard in the OCG they have something called like tactical tri decks, which is a competitive deck straight out of the box. I think the TCG also kind of needs that, because it's like, I think like OCG is like not as expensive as TCG because it's how the rarities work in OCG, but I really think they need to bring tactical tri decks over to the TCG in order to allow more people to play the game in a competitive manner. The next and final point that I could think of is enhance the community engagement through content creators. I know that like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel live streams, they bring in creators to like cast it. Like I know I saw Paul from Team APS bring that in, but I think like they need to like, instead of live streams, why not just make actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Content on like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like socials using the content creators, you know? The content creators probably know how to make content the best compared to like the media people at Yu-Gi-Oh! So why not just bring them in for a video, like IRL videos, like, you know, they just like talk about, just get Paul from Team APS to just talk about some random stuff on Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel itself, and then you get like a ton of people watching it because it's Paul from Team APS, bro. You know, that's the GOAT right there. So I just think they need to use the content creators better rather than just have them casting tournaments. Make them actually make content for you guys. You know, like maybe have like advertisements using the content creators as like, imagine like watching TV and all of a sudden you see your favorite YouTuber in an ad, you know? Like you could do the same with Yu-Gi-Oh, you know? So yeah, so I guess that's it for this Yap session. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment down below what you think could fix Yu-Gi-Oh's new player issue. And yeah, hope you guys have a nice day and peace out.